Once upon a time, in a cozy little cottage nestled at the edge of a bustling village, there lived a mother named Mrs. Green and her spirited daughter, Rosie. Rosie was a whirlwind of energy, her laughter echoing through the halls as she dashed from one adventure to another. Despite her boundless energy, Rosie had a mischievous streak. She loved nothing more than causing a bit of chaos, especially when it came to helping her mother in the kitchen. Mrs. Green, a patient and loving mother, often found herself cleaning up flour spills and chasing after runaway ingredients whenever Rosie joined her for baking sessions. One bright and sunny morning, Mrs. Green decided it was time to teach Rosie a lesson in responsibility. With a twinkle in her eye, she announced, "Rosie, my dear, today we shall bake cookies for our neighbors. But remember, we must do it with love and care." Rosie nodded enthusiastically, eager to lend a hand. However, as soon as Mrs. Green turned her attention to measuring out the flour, Rosie's mischievous grin returned. With a mischievous glint in her eye, she scooped up a handful of flour and playfully blew it into the air, creating a cloud of white powder that settled over everything in sight. "Rosie!" Mrs. Green exclaimed, her voice a mixture of surprise and dismay. "Look at the mess you've made." But Rosie just giggled, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Undeterred, she continued her antics, tossing handfuls of flour into the air and twirling around the kitchen in a whirlwind of chaos. Realizing that a stern word was not enough to rein in her spirited daughter, Mrs. Green knew she had to take a different approach. With a determined expression, she beckoned Rosie over and whispered a plan in her ear. "Rosie, my darling," she began, her voice soft but firm, "I have an idea. We shall bake a special batch of cookies together, but we must follow a set of rules." Intrigued, Rosie listened intently as her mother outlined the rules. "Rule number 1, no giggling," Mrs. Green said, her gaze unwavering. "Rule number 2, no making a mess," she continued, her tone firm. "And most importantly, rule number 3, we must work together as a team," Mrs. Green concluded, her eyes locking with Rosie's. Rosie nodded eagerly, her mischievous grin replaced with a look of determination. Together, mother and daughter set to work, measuring ingredients and mixing dough with care. With Mrs. Green's gentle guidance, Rosie soon learned the importance of patience and cooperation. As they worked side by side, the kitchen transformed into a hive of activity, filled with laughter and warmth. Rosie focused on the task at hand, determined to follow her mother's rules and prove that she could be a responsible helper. Finally, after much hard work and laughter, the cookies were ready to be baked. Mrs. Green smiled proudly at Rosie, her heart swelling with love. "Well done, my dear," she said, her voice filled with pride. "You've done a wonderful job." Rosie beamed with pride, her eyes shining with newfound confidence. In that moment, she realized that being naughty wasn't nearly as fun as working together with her mom. With a newfound sense of responsibility, she promised to be a better helper in the kitchen, knowing that her mother's love and guidance would always lead her in the right direction. And as they enjoyed their freshly baked cookies together, mother and daughter shared a special bond that would last a lifetime. For in the warmth of the kitchen, surrounded by the sweet scent of freshly baked cookies, they discovered the true magic of love, laughter, and cooperation. To watch more videos, subscribe to our channel.